Hello everyone, welcome to Art with Mr. P. Yep, that's me. So, welcome to Art with Mr. P, where our class mantra is listen, understand, then do. Today, we're going to be showing how to follow the contour of an item for still life drawing. When we use lines to identify the outside and details of an object, the process will be termed as line drawing or drawing an outline. When we use lines to identify only the outside of an object, the process will be termed as contour drawing. So, stage 1. The starting point. Now we have to identify the parts or sides of the object and treat each separately. I do this by selecting shapes that can be used to identify each part. In identifying a shape for the top, I first have to identify, is it straight or curved? Now, seeing that it's curved, I'm going to be thinking about what curved shapes do I know that could fit where the top is. And one curved elongated shape that I know is an oval. So I'll be using that to represent the top of my object. Next, I go to the middle. Now, in looking on the middle, I can identify that there is not one solid movement. The line curves away. So what shapes can I identify that I could see these different parts? Now, in looking to the top left, I notice that there seems to be a pointed section going to the top. Now, it moves diagonally to the right, so it's slanting down. And then it goes right across, coming back close to that same point. So this gives me 3 points, or 3 sides. The 3-sided figure that I know is a triangle. So looking on this, I can use a triangle to identify this side and movement. Now, after that side has been identified, I'm looking on the remainder of the middle. Now, the shape that I see that can help me here is a trapezium, as looking on the sides, the lines seem to go wider as they go to the bottom. So I have that trapezium as my next shape. But when I put these two together, I get a shape which identifies going to a point and coming down at the sides. Now, looking on the handle, what shape could I use to create this curved handle shape as it gets smaller at the bottom and curved and round at the top? Now, seeing this, it reminds me of half of a heart. But I'll notice that it is a solid section. And if I look at the handle, I will realize that there is a middle piece that is there, but the shape remains the same. So what I will do is to draw a second heart that fits inside the first one. Okay, now we're to the bottom or the base. Now I realize that the bottom of this jug is completely round, but it does not move in a perfect circle. It's still stretched a bit to the right and the left. So the other round shape that I know is an oval. So using the oval, it covers that base, and I'm able to see that the curves continue to that side. So I have identified the shapes that I can use to identify each of these parts. So what I'll be doing next will be to take my time and to correctly draw these shapes. Now you will notice that I am filling in the shapes with a solid color or a solid tone as I go along. Now this helps me to not place lines inside of each shape so that it remains one solid shape. Alright? So I have my triangle, then I have my trapezium, Then I'm going to be putting in my half of a heart, and I'm also putting in the smaller half heart. Now for the base, I'm going to be going with my oval. So this fills out my shape and gives me that complete object. Using the same approaches in finding the shapes for that bowl. Now in the same process, the top is curved, so I'm going to be using my oval to identify the top of that bowl. Now if you look at the shape that middle causes, now it goes to a very thin point going to the right, and it has, yes, a curved end, but then if I use a straight line, I can get a triangle again. So looking on it, I'm utilizing a triangle because it goes smaller one end and gets wider to the opposite end. Now for the body of the second bowl, I'm using half of a circle or a semicircle. Now it identifies the top as I'm getting a line going from left to right, and I'm getting that curved shape at the bottom. Now for my base, I'm seeing a movement going from left to right. Yes, it is curved, but I don't know of any shape that has a curved bottom, a curved top, and straight sides. So the only common shape that I know that it has two sides equal, so the top and the bottom are the same length, and the left and the right are the same length. So when two sides are equal, I get a rectangle. So I'll be using a rectangle for the base of my bowl. In putting them together, I'm getting my oval, my triangle, my semicircle, and my rectangle. And this gives me the contour for those two objects. Okay, now what if I added a third object? So I have my bowl and my spoon. So I have my semicircle for the body of my bowl. I have an oval for the top of my bowl, and I have a rectangle for the base. Now what about the spoon? The open head of the spoon reminds me of an oval, and we have the narrow end or the handle of that spoon. Now it has two parts, so I have a part of the handle which is narrow, so I'm using a narrow rectangle, and then there's another part that's a bit thicker, so I use a wider rectangle. Okay, so what we have is to identify all of those shapes to create our contours. Now we will always notice that when it is a solid figure or a silhouette, we will identify the objects. Now before we end, there is another important part, and this part is called our surface. Now without our surface, it will seem as if our objects are in mid-air, but our surface is used to identify what our objects are resting on. This also helps to separate what we call the ground from the wall or the sky. Anything above the surface identifies in the air. Anything below that line on the surface says it is resting on something. And the surface is the area where we'll always notice shadows, and this will always help us to identify our light sources. So what we have to identify is what our item is being placed on. Now it's always good to know if, just like the spoon, if all of your item is resting on the surface, that means it is flat. But if a part of your item is above the surface, that means it is standing up. Thank you for staying through the stages. If there are any questions or comments, please feel free to leave it in the comment section. Now is the time to test your newfound knowledge, aka start the work now. You are able to replay and scrub through this video if there are any areas you are not sure about as you complete your task. Remember to post or send in your practice pieces to your Google Classroom or designarts183@yahoo.com. See you at our next class, where we'll be looking on how to complete outlines or line drawings. See you then.